rulesforsuccess.com. I'm beyond excited for our interview today. For all of you accessing the interviews, go to rulesforsuccess.com. We'll have John Barrows, his background, his bio. We'll summarize this whole event. We'll put some AI summaries in it as well. John Barrows is a B2B sales trainer and the founder of JB Sales. He spent over 2 decades in sales, from making $400 a week to leading a self-funded sales team from startup through acquisition, to building a training business that works with fast-growing teams at companies like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Google, and Amazon. He also hosts the Make It Happen Mondays podcast, focuses on practical execution, modern prospecting, and selling with authenticity. John's mission is simple. He makes sales a profession that people respect, because when it's done right, it creates real value for customers and real opportunity for people. So I love this. This, for us in the community, we lead community success circles. We're all about getting on the court, getting in the game, just building as many references as possible, how many reps as possible. Like, everything you're saying is like right on. Awesome, brother. I'm excited. So what got you into the world of sales? What got you into this on this path?
Yeah, man. So I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, my journey is probably similar to a lot of people. Like, I kind of fell into sales just like everybody else. It still cracks me up. I do my trainings a lot, and I'll ask anybody got their degree in sales here. And still to this day, very few people do. Now, we are seeing more universities now. I think there's about 200 universities in the United States that you can actually get your degree in. But back when I graduated, which was, 2 decades is being kind, I crept up. I just hit the 50 threshold. Yeah. So, it's a weird milestone, but yeah, no, I went to school down at University of Maryland. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So kind of marketing, right? So I drank my way through 4 years of college. And then I got an opportunity for DeWalt Power Tools. So it was interesting because University of Maryland, they Black & Decker is right next to like Townsend, Maryland. So they recruit heavily out of Maryland. And there was this DeWalt team, and it was under sales, but it was really more event marketing. And it was our job to just basically drive around a Dodge Ram pickup truck, giving away free tools to construction workers. So it was pretty cool. I liked it. I was like, all right, this makes sense to me. And I like DeWalt Power Tools. So I did that for, about 6 months, was one of the top reps, and then got promoted to the Home Depot team and that's where I started to sell a little bit more, because, Home Depot actually had to buy DeWalt Power Tools, but they bought 10,000, 20,000. My job was to make it a $50,000, $100,000 order. So, sell throughs and end caps and all that fun stuff. Then I went to Xerox. And that's really where I got my true sales education, right? They had the 8-week sales training program. They were world renowned for their training back in the day, even though I didn't really know it. And, I sold copiers to the government, which is about as bad as it gets, you know what I mean? From a commodity standpoint. And government couldn't even negotiate on contract. Like, it was what it was. So that's where I learned how to take rejection and also solution selling and all that fun stuff. And then I joined a startup with a couple of friends of mine from high school, and we were self-funded. That was the IT services company that I started and sold to Staples. And, I had no idea what I was doing when I was 25. 23. And
with a lot of energy, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one thing for me. I always knew I wasn't the smartest kid out there, but I always knew that I could outwork pretty much anybody. And that's why sales to me was very natural, because the 9-to-5 salary job just never made sense, because I knew I was going to work harder regardless than anybody else around me. And so that's why I think sales really resonated with my personality. And and so we ended up, being the fastest growing company in Massachusetts for a few years in a row. And it was because I was just hungry. I was taking every training I could. I took Sandler, Miller Heiman, Taz, Spin, all of it. And I came across this group called Basho. It was this really cool training that was local here in Boston. And I liked it because it was tactical. It wasn't this big, long process I had to follow, or this huge strategic. It was like, here's how to send an email, Here's how to make a phone call. And I'm a very keep it simple, stupid guy. Like, you make it too complex and I ain't going to do it. And so I loved it, and I used it, helped grow Thrive Up. Then we sold to Staples. And then I spent a year going through that, realizing I'm not exactly a corporate guy. Eventually Staples offered me another position, which they fired me. And I was looking for a job. I joined Basho, the training company, not because I wanted to be a trainer though, because they had a really interesting model of that you had to sell to train. So you
Hmm.
couldn't just be a trainer. And if you just asked me to be a trainer, I'd say no.
Hmm.
I
That's
love
a,
sales.
that's a good model. Sell the train. So basically, show what you got to get in the
Yeah.
court. Basically, yeah, got it.
Because there were so many other trainers you see who like they don't practice what they preach, right? Because it's a good slide deck. Like most sales trainers up until that point in my career that I had met were either failed sales professionals or professional presenters.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to be that guy. And so they
Hmm.
were like, no, 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 you have to actually sell so you can train. So you had to use all the same stuff that you were using to sell to then
Hmm.
translate to your, and that's kind of what really resonated with me. And then to make a long story short, they screwed it up and I took it over. So about 15 years ago, went off on my own with JV Sales and took my client Salesforce, LinkedIn Box, all the fun ones with me, and still doing that to this day.
Hmm. Amazing. Wow. What an amazing journey.
That's
Got
been a
it.
fun one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, was there a mistake early in your career that kind of cost you like challenges early on?
I mean, I made a million mistakes. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why I do what I do these days is so that people don't have to make nearly as many mistakes as I did.
Mm,
I think all the typical ones, like in your journey in sales, pitching people, not listening, thinking that your
mm,
product matters in any way, shape, or form when it doesn't. Thinking you matter in any way, shape, or form that when you
mm,
don't, like nobody cares about us. They only care about their own problems
mm,
and their
mm.
issues.
WIF.
Um, I think building a business, I've made a million mistakes, a solopreneur. I ended up building a business because I could, not because I wanted to. When I went off on my own, I ended up getting this thing up to about 6 million back in 2022-ish. I got up to about 6 million, about 20 employees. And then 2023 hit with the tech market crash and
Right.
AI coming out. And, I'm a professional services company. So I went from 6 million to zero in literally 2 months and had to rebuild completely again. Now I'm back off on my
Wow.
own with my COO. So yeah, a lot of scars, if you will, a lot of mistakes. But that's why I always share my mistakes
Yeah.
because yeah, I think you learn a lot more from those than your successes. And but yeah, I mean, I think I made pretty much every mistake you could make growing a business and being in sales.
You said the sales done right is one of the greatest professions. I know also you wrote a book with your daughter,
Yeah.
right? Um, what is what's done wrong at its worst and what's
Yeah.
done right in plain English?
Yeah, I mean, I think the perception of sales is why everybody hates it, right?
Mm,
Is like, ew, it's like the Gordon Belforts of the
mm,
world, the Grant Cardones of the world, like the
mm.
douchebags who are just basically trying to stuff it down somebody's throat.
Yeah,
And I always say, if you're trying to convince anybody in sales, you're doing it wrong.
yeah,
Sales isn't about convincing anybody of anything. It's about helping people solve problems or achieve goals, period.
yeah.
And so if that's your mindset, and then the other thing I think that is just the most important thing you need to have to be successful in sales is a belief in what you do. Like a
Mm,
genuine belief that what you do matters and it makes a real difference for the right person.
mm.
Because somebody told me this early in my career that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm.
Yeah,
And I believe that, right? Like that you believe that much in your solution that if you find somebody that fits that, like it's about transferring that enthusiasm, right? Because people still buy on emotion, they back it up with fact.
yeah.
And so I think the sales done wrong is just doing it for a commission check. Just
Mm.
doing it because you like I hear people, oh, that person can sell ice to Eskimos. And I'm going to tell you that's one of the worst sales reps I've ever come across in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's a douchebag who knows how to manipulate people.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, we are a species that is easily manipulated,
yeah.
right? So if you have the gift for gab and all that other stuff and you can make a lot of money really fast. And
Yeah.
that's the hard thing about, doing quote unquote sales the right way, in my opinion. It's not
Mm,
a quick buck. It's not, you're not going to make stacks of cash in the first year or two or whatever it is, because it's a slow roll, right?
mm,
It's
mm,
doing the right thing for the right reasons, with integrity, with authenticity, not lying.
mm,
You don't always have to tell the whole truth, you know what I
mm,
mean? But
mm.
lying is what everybody believes sales reps are, liars, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I always kind of joke like, what came first, chicken or the egg, right? Did the client lie to the sales rep first, or did the sales rep lie to the client first? And my belief is probably the sales rep lied to the client first, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I,
Along those lines, I went to a seminar 20 years ago, and the guy on stage talked about the best sales book in all time is Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss,
I like
which,
it.
which I have a few copies of, right?
Yeah,
But like in having kids and rethinking the whole thing
yeah,
and repositioning that over and over again without
right,
listening, right?
right,
Probably is not the best choice.
yeah,
Rethinking that whole idea.
yeah,
And there's something about that you mentioned before. Like, I mean, when you repeat something over and over again, eventually you could convince a person. You
Yeah.
might make them angry at some
Yeah.
point. I've heard sales and marketing that when you see something 7 to 14 times over and over again,
Yeah.
there's a slight inclination. It's likely that you'll buy it at some point,
Yeah.
but the key thing is doing it with integrity and
Yep.
buying it from a person who really truly believes in a product, like
Yeah.
you mentioned just now.
Yeah. The caveat to that I've been exploring is I think a lot of sales reps convince themselves that what they're doing is right. It
Mm,
just for the like that the so they therefore the means justify the ends. You know,
mm,
I'll pick the Jordan Belforts and the Wolf of Wall Street. Like
mm,
I'm betting some of those kids actually did think that if they got that person into that penny stock, that it would change their life, and that's how
mm,
they were able to sleep at night. So
yeah,
I think there is like this, like when I say when you believe in what
yeah,
you do, like yes and right.
yeah,
You,
yes,
yes, you got to believe in what you're selling, but hopefully, and you know, this is your definition of values versus my definition of values and all that fun stuff, but hopefully you're doing it for the right reasons and it
yeah,
does make an actual positive impact,
yes,
not just on one or two lucky people that you might have stumbled across, but like in general, this helps people. And this is why I tell reps, like a lot of reps, because this was my little, you know,
mm,
when I got fired from Staples,
mm,
I was a little bit of a panic because I had
mm,
been IT services for
mm,
7 years.
mm,
And I had no plan B. I had no, like, I wasn't looking at any other options. And so now
mm,
I had to find, and I had never been fired before in my life.
mm,
And so now I had to look for a job. And I'm like, oh shit. Like I was panicking. I'm like,
mm,
am I an IT sales guy? Is that what I am? Right. And I was like, I don't even like computers.
yeah,
Whatever. And so my wife was the one that helped me figure this out. So she goes, well, okay, let's calm down here. She goes, let's take a look at every job you've had so far. And why were you the best at that job in that region
mm,
or whatever in the territory? So,
mm,
and she's like, let's start with DeWalt. She's
mm,
like, why were you one of the best reps at DeWalt? I was like,
mm,
I don't know. Like DeWalt reps are pretty cool. Like they're pretty badass. I think they're, you know what I mean? I just like them. Right.
yeah,
She's like, okay. Well, she's like, Xerox. Why were you the best rep at Xerox? I
mm,
was like, I don't know. Like, I don't like copiers, but I genuinely believe that Xerox is the best copier company in the country, in the world, right?
mm, mm,
And so it wasn't the copier itself. It's I believed in the company was the best at what it did.
mm, mm,
And then Thrive, my company, I didn't care about computers. I didn't care about routers and servers. Like,
mm,
but I believed that the people, the engineers, and our process was better than anybody else's out there at the time.
mm, mm,
And so then it just dawned on me. It didn't matter what I sold. It mattered that I believed in what I sold.
yeah,
And that transferred that all of a sudden opened my eyes wide up to like, oh, okay, cool. Now I can go find things. And that's why like reps out there, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm selling a CRM system or I'm selling a like, how can I get passionate about this? You don't have to get passionate about the product itself. You have to get passionate about the result that it drives.
yeah,
So go talk
yeah,
to some customers.
yeah,
Like go talk to your founder, right? And
yeah,
ask your founder, like, why'd you start this business in the first place? What was the
yeah,
problem you were trying to solve, right? And
yeah,
see them light up about why they started the business. Go talk to some customers and say, hey, before you were using us, what were you doing? And now that you're
yeah,
using us, what difference has it made for you personally? You know, and when
yeah,
you could say, "Oh man, like before we were drowning in spreadsheets, and I was staying up all night, I couldn't see my kids, I wasn't able to do this, and we implemented their stuff, and all of a sudden I got time back, my weekends are free again." Like, now all of a sudden it's like, "Ooh,
yeah,
okay," and then
yes,
you can start to believe, and then you can start to transfer that enthusiasm.
incredible. Like I love that, really tapping into the customers, and I'm all for me too. When I'm reminded about the journey, the transformation that I create for my customers, it brings me back to why I do this. And so we forget
Exactly.
that. I think all of us as humans, we have this thing, and I've dealt with this. I'm an engineer by trade, where I used to be, and I used
Yep.
to be in IT tech services years
Yep.
ago. But part of my personal journey was getting out of the whole imposter syndrome,
Yep.
being a fraud, being not worth it, like getting over that. Then I had to do a lot of personal development to get out of that.
Yep.
And so I'm a huge advocate for doing that work. I'm
Oh yeah.
also an advocate for people to execute because execution's the mother of all skills. It's
Yep.
it's everything
Just do
because
it.
cash flow is both king and queen, right?
Yep.
For business. So that comes down to getting out there, making the calls.
Yep.
Yet a lot of founders, I know a lot of the people you engage are not necessarily founders who do a lot of B2B, but I'm
Yep.
sure a lot of people who engage in your world who are in awe about how you show up.
Yeah.
How do you engage people to get out of their own way, right? How do they show up any given day. I have clients before 10 a.m. they've made 20 calls already.
Right.
You make 400 calls a week, and that's practice, right? And
Right.
getting out there and believing your
Yep.
product and all the things you said. When you walk into a company, what kind of beliefs are you shifting in people to be able to pick up the phone, hang up, pick up the phone? And the dialer software is out there. One of my college classmates,
Yeah.
Manny, he built Outreach.io and a
Yep.
bunch of other dialer products
Man,
out
yeah.
there.
Yep.
Those tools exist that force
Yeah.
you to like, or cause you to hang up and call again within like 10,
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Yep.
But there's still like a mental thing with that too. So how do you do that?
Yeah. You got to find the connection. And this is why I actually, as much as I look, I was one of the original board of advisors for Sales Loft. I know Outreach really, really well. I've been sponsored by those companies. I've used those companies.
Mm.
I personally can't stand them. That I can't stand all of the automation out there because that is not putting you as that's a marketing thing. I look at all this all these mass emails and cadences and sequences. I look at that now as a marketing function, not a sales function. So if you want to do it that way, fine, go ahead and do it. But don't pretend like that's sales.
So you're separating marketing and sales. That's
Yeah.
what I hear you doing.
Well, no, actually, I'm combining them because I think that the majority of what outbound sales professionals do is marketing, not sales. Like I did a presentation a while back. I go, to Pavilion, which is the CRO summit thing, and I called it anything but predictable. And the idea here is that I think predictable revenue ruins sales. I really do. The segmentation of roles, right? The SDR inbound, the BDR outbound, the AE, and then go from there. Because when I grew up in sales, it was, you did everything. You were the prospect, you met with clients, you negotiated deals. Most of the time, you actually even managed the customer in a lot of ways. And it gave you such a different perspective on how to spend your time, where to spend your time, right? Those type of things, what was worth your time. And now we have this assembly line that people go through, and it's not customer centric in any way, shape, or form. Like nobody wants to be. It worked when the money was free, grow at all costs, all that stuff, and especially in the SaaS and the tech industry. But it's not customer centric. Nobody wants to be handed off 5 times before they talk to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I think that, to get out of your own way, and I can speak to business owners like solopreneurs like myself and these large tech SaaS companies. Large tech SaaS companies is actually easier, quite frankly, because that's their role. Their role is to make cold calls. So I can kind of beat them over the head to say, like, this is how to do it right. Like, you got to make the calls anyways. Like, might as well learn from it. And but that's also how I dissect it down to individuals, because we got to do the activities, to your point. Like, we got to do the reps just to figure this stuff out. But what a lot of people don't do is they don't learn from the reps. They might learn through osmosis or through just doing, and they're picking up on it, but they're not intentional about it. So you bring up the 400 dials a week, right?
Yeah.
Early days, I knew, again, that I wasn't the smart kid out there, right? But I knew I could outwork. So I figured out my equation. My equation was I had to make $1,600 a month. That got me 8 meetings a month. It got me 4 proposals. It got me 2 pieces of closed business, an average deal size of $3,500. Like that was my equation. And I just hammered that equation. $400, 400. And by the way, that was while going on those meetings, negotiating those contracts and doing all that stuff. I wasn't just a cold caller. I was a player coach.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, that was just pure effort alone. Okay. What I should have done, and now I'm big into, is A/B split testing. So this speaks to the engineering mindset, right? And marketing mindset, quite frankly, is A/B split test. So for instance, instead of making 400 generic cold calls and just hopefully tripping over an opportunity, I'm going to pick one persona, come up with 4 different messages and make 100, 100, 100, 100, 100 and see which one which approach yields a higher response rate.
Yes.
I'm going to, like, throughout the day, I'm going to pick something that I'm going to test. And see if it works, right? Whether it's a new question I'm going to ask during my discovery, a new subject line I'm going to use in my emails, a new way of managing it, have an agenda for a meeting, whatever it might be. And I'm going to see, and I'm going to test it enough to see, did that work? Did that move the dial? And so I think if I speak to engineers, it's treat sales as a science, because everybody says sales is a science and an art, obviously, but most people think it's more of an art form, especially engineers think it's more of an art form. It's not. It's a science. It's more of a science than an art. There's very few of us that are just the natural born sales professionals that can just say the perfect thing at the right time, know exactly how to spend it. Like very, very, I'm talking less than 5%. I know 2 people in my life who I think are the holy shit natural born sales professionals. Okay. I'm not. I got to work my ass off in sales. And when I treated it as either all effort or all art, right? Because I didn't prepare, I would just show up to meetings and whatever it is, I would fail on both ends. But if I treated it as a science and started looking at it and saying split testing and trying different things and putting together a process and identifying the weak link of that process, figuring out a solution, plugging it back in and going from there, like now all of a sudden it became a lot more interesting to me because I was tweaking and testing. And I always tell reps, like, if you make 50, like, here's an example. If you make $50 in a day, right? And you get no meetings, that's a terrible day. It's a brutal day, right? And I agree with you, especially if you didn't learn anything from it. But if you make $50 and instead of just making 50 generic cold calls, you come up with 2 different approaches to the same persona, right? So CIOs in healthcare, something like that. And you make $25 with this approach and $25 with that approach, and you still get no meetings. To me, that's not a bad day because you just figured out 2 approaches that don't work. Tomorrow you come in and try a couple new ones. So I think going back to your question about like getting out of your own way, you have to figure out what the end goal is, right? So the first thing that I do with all my clients is we back into their equation. Like what's your quota, right? Say it's $1 million. What's your average deal size? Okay. So therefore you need this many deals. How many proposals do you need to hit those? You know, what's your close rate there? What's your close rate from conversion, where your conversion rate from meeting to close, you know, those type of things. So therefore, how many meetings do you need to get on a monthly basis? And then where are you going to get those meetings from? And those meetings don't always have to be outbound. Obviously, you got inbound, you got referrals, you got partners, you got networking events, trade shows. There's all these different channels. So as a solopreneur, like you need to kind of get really tight on your ideal customer profile to know exactly who you service best. And then find all the different ways and channels of getting in touch with them, and then tweak and test and tweak and test. And that way you start to become somebody who can, you know, science out sales. Now, the art is what you do once you're in that meeting. The art is how, you know, the how you phrase something in your language, not mine. But the structure and the process is there. It's universal.
I mean, it does take a bit of intelligence to kind of go in there and re-optimize, take feedback. I mean, when I was dating my wife years ago, and before that, I got pretty good at dating. We'd go out there and meet people. And I had a log, and I basically note how I showed up, where I added value, what I remembered. And I mean, it's all sales, right? And part of that is sales when I worked in an IT company as an engineer. But like having that data is very useful and going back in there. I think one of the challenges a lot of solopreneurs have were companies where they can afford people, they can have people in marketing and sales, and I know you bring them both together here in this equation, the way you're talking about things. One of the issues I see with my clients is that when they're stepping into the sales role, that we're putting on a certain hat, and they're going into their engaging conversations. It's almost like the idea of like visionary integrator, the whole idea that Gino Wickman talks about. And it's like, it's organizing one's day so they can have as many of those calls as possible, while also designing their week in ways where they're focusing on other aspects of marketing, business growth, conversations, doing a webinar perhaps. So it's like working that same muscle over and over again on any given day. And a lot of people have trouble, even for myself, like switching hats at times, especially when they're a solopreneur. And when you get smart, you start outsourcing a lot of this. You start building teams, and you kind of like look at data, and you meet with your team as far as, and you basically schedule in advance who are you going to call the next 3 days. Like that's all mapped out. So it takes all the emotion out of the mix when those calls happen. But it's not easy, but it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of time to get into that whole mindset. And one could easily put a lot of time into that and have other leakage happening elsewhere in their business, you know, with cash flow or repetitive debt and things of that sort. So how do you navigate that? And I know you work with B2B, so you work with big companies, you work with Google, and you work.
I work with individuals too, but yeah, no, I think it's a lot of it comes down to routine. You know, I mean, it's some of the fundamental stuff like goal setting, prioritization, and focus, right? Like what are your goals? What's important? What's not important? Because we're all shiny object, like squirrel type of stuff. But I also think that, you know, routine is important. So for instance, you know, I have very little tolerance for any business owner or solopreneur or sales rep, specifically like a account executive who says, oh, they don't have time to prospect. It's like, really? Let me show you my calendar. Tell me if your calendar is more busy than mine. I travel all over the world. I train all these companies in all these different regions. And I also sell every day. I prospect every day. I do all my new negotiations. I do podcasts. I do webinars. Like I literally do everything. And I still prospect almost every day. And it's because I have a routine. Every morning I wake up and for 30 minutes on the calendar, I pick one account, tier one account that I really want to get into. I do all my research on them, map out a 5 to 10 touch tailored contact strategy to, and then I schedule it and then I send out my first email and I schedule the rest of them in Salesforce, right? And I just do that every day. And then I do 30, so that's 30 minutes a day on one account, one tier one account. And then the other 30, then right after that, I do my social selling, which is I've worked it into my routine where, I follow all the thought leaders in my space and I consume their content with the purpose of learning. And then when I learn something, I share it on social. Hey, really interesting article here. And my key takeaways were X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. So I'm learning, check the box off as business acumen, development. Then I'm sharing with context. So I'm building my brand because I get credit for what I share, not the person who wrote it. And I might poke around and see, be a little bit opportunistic with some other accounts that I'm tracking and stuff like that. So I have systems where all this stuff is tracking and pinging me on, hey, John, this company just went through a merger. Hey, John, this company just did that. You might want to reach out to them. Yeah. So an hour a day. That's how I generate $1.5 million in revenue while doing all the revenue as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sitting, that's why I like the cadence tools and all that stuff. Those are fine. But I think quality over quantity any day of the week at this point, especially with AI, because AI is, personalization at scale. It's just slightly better shitty emails that are going out. You know what I mean? Like I call it the give a shit factor. It's the one thing that AI can't do is care. It's one thing it can't do. And when you care, when you genuinely care, and I mean that, like I had a rep working for me for a while and he was doing good, really good. He had been an SDR and an SDR manager. And he was creating cadences and doing fine and getting results, but then it kind of leveled off. And he goes, John, he came to me one time. He's like, I feel like I'm doing all the right stuff here, man, but I'm just not getting the results I'd expect to get if, based on the work that we're doing. What do I need to change? And I said, Morgan, your results aren't going to change until one thing does. And he said, what? I said, until you start giving a shit, man. Until you start caring, until you start genuinely thinking the person that you're reaching out as a person, like somebody who gets up in the morning, has kids, drops them off at school, has a boss yelling at them, whatever. Until you start thinking of them that way, man, and not as a number you have to hit, as a cadence you have to send, as a call you have to make, like then your results are going to change. And so I think if you take a step back and take the perception of sales out of your head, okay, take the idea that I'm going to make a bunch of cold calls or send a bunch of emails to get meetings out of, just rip that away from your psyche and realize that you do something that you believe in that makes a real difference for the right client. So therefore, let's back into it. How many of those, what does that right client look like? Like really look like, not just because they're, this many employees and in this industry, like the basic shit of ICP, right? But like, what stage of the business are they? Series A, Series B, Series C? What's the department in the organization look like that you sell to? Is it one person? Is it 5 people? What type of technologies do they use? Like, what's the use case here? Where can you add the highest amount of value to those? And then you find that core. Then you create a list, Sales Navigator, Zoom Info, whatever you want. You find 25 tier ones that fit that exact profile. You set those up on tracking tools like Sales Navigator, Owler, Google Alerts, whatever. And then you start looking at those accounts like those are the accounts you want to work with. Because, one of the things I told my team back when I had them was after they would do the demographic profile to get their top 25, what I would tell them is like, before you can prospect into them, I need you to go now that you have your list, I need you to now go back to that list and tell me what's the reason why you personally want to work with that company. Like, is it because of their values? Is it because of what they sell? Is it because of their leadership? What is it? Like, what connection? Not because they fit our profile, but why do you, Sarah, want to work with that company?
There has to be like an emotional connection, like something amazing.
Like, I have a friend who works there. I have heard awesome things about their culture, whatever. Because once you make that connection, then it's like, ooh, now your research is purposeful. Now your messaging is authentic. Now it's interesting, and you're not selling. You're helping.
Yeah, got it. That's incredible. I love it. Basically making cold calling emotional.
Yeah. Give a shit. Like, care. Like, that's why I never apologize. Like, people, I'm sorry to bother you. I never apologize because I'm doing you a favor by calling you. Because I know that if you fit, kind of my hypothesis is right, that you're at a similar stage of other companies that I've done some business with. Oh man, like, I'm going to change your world. But if you don't, by the way, I go away.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like I'm the first person to disqualify an account as fat. Like if you and I start
Yeah.
talking, even if you came inbound and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you look like a duck, smell like a duck. I flip to disqualifying immediately. I'm like, I try to find all the reasons why you shouldn't do business with me, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to find that out eventually, subconsciously or consciously.
Yeah.
And so I'll just be like, you know what, I'm not a good fit for this. Like I could do good work here, but I can't do great work. So you should go talk to so and so.
And I've heard that idea of like whose frame are you in, right?
Yep.
That's part of it. And so if it's a qualification process, if they're seeing if they're the right fit for the process,
Yep.
that's a very useful frame to be in. Or as Jay Abraham talks about the idea of being a fiduciary in the moment, adding value, stepping in like this. If it's something you believe in, you'll go in there,
Yep.
being the trusted advisor for that person in that
Absolutely.
moment.
And that's where it's fun. You know what I mean? That's where you can get through the hard times of not, right? Because you make a difference for the right client. It's just finding that right client to make the difference for, and then tweaking and testing different approaches to kind of help guide them through the process, right? I think
Yeah.
influence is important. I think manipulation is what bad sales reps do. Influence is what great sales reps do.
Agreed. Amazing. You talked about AI. It's the
Yep.
age of AI. So I mean, even before this conversation happened,
Yeah.
I went through Grok,
Yep.
Unhinged mode, and I also use ChatGPT when going back and forth. You can actually have conversations with these tools
Yep.
as a way of testing out what we're going to say, or basically doing a call, a
Yep.
pre-call before it happens. How do you leverage these tools? How do you recommend organizations leverage these tools, especially in this new age of AI? You mentioned you've had to make some shifts in the past 3 years
Oh
in your
yeah.
business.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, right? I think this is if when you, it's same thing with sales. Like I think with AI, when used the right way, it's a superpower. When used the
Mhm.
wrong way, it's a replacement. And I think the danger here is we've gone from a search engine to an answer engine, and that's a
Yeah.
dangerous thing, right?
Mm.
We can all argue that Google kind of fed us whatever it felt like feeding us, right? But at least it was
Mm.
a perception of choice, and we had to kind of read
Mm.
through an article or two and then come up with our own opinion.
Mm.
AI now gives you the answer.
Yeah.
And for those of us that are curious and are kind of doubtful, you know what I mean? It's actually a superpower. Like, tell me more about that. Where'd you get that
Mm.
from? Source check that, please. Give me a different perspective here. Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah blah. Blah, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome superpower. But unfortunately, for the vast majority of us who are lazy as shit, they're just going to take the answer and copy, paste, and
Yeah.
send. And
Yeah.
in that case, I don't know what the point of the human is in that equation.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's the danger here is like a lot of people are jumping to the answer,
Yeah.
right? Without the
Yeah.
learning and ripping out the learning of it.
Yeah.
So
They lose their kind of humanity. They lose
yeah,
a bit of their presence in the moment,
yeah,
and they're kind of building this whole muscle within themselves. So let's trust a robot. Let's
yeah,
trust that, and it could be useful, especially if you have to, spit out 50 articles about a topic. That might be useful, but when it comes down to human connection, um, if I'm working with an organization and something comes across that's not in integrity with what we're creating here, oftentimes like everything comes after it, I'll toss out, right?
yep,
So it's kind of
yep,
being mindful of everything comes forward, and it takes work, right? I mean, it,
yeah.
it can amplify your efforts or it could like take away, and we've got to be really mindful about that.
Yeah, my take on AI right now is if I know it's AI, I'm really interested. I will read whatever it is,
Mm.
I will engage however it is. But as soon as a human uses AI to pretend like it's human and I
Mm.
sniff that it's AI,
Mm.
I discredit everything that's on it. Like,
Yeah.
if I read an email and it's like, "Oh, this is a really person," and then I see an M dash, I'm like, "Fuck this.
Yeah,
Excuse
me
me."
too.
Like,
Me
I'm
too.
done. Like, this
Me
is
too.
you didn't even write this. You know what I mean? Or
Exactly.
if I'm
Yeah.
reading a LinkedIn post and I'm like, "Oh, this is a really thought up." There's
Mm.
that dumb emoji or that hit hard, and it's like,
Yeah.
"God, man." Like, and I don't care how valuable the post is. I
Yeah.
will immediately. But if somebody's like, "Hey, man, I used AI to write this, but it was my original thought. It just helped me organize
Yeah.
it, and here it is." I'm like, "Okay, let me read it." So I think that's the play that we have here
Yeah.
is if you're pretending, if AI is pretending to be human, I think it's a fool's errand. But if you use it as a true co-pilot, then I
Yes.
think it's like, here's an example. Like I recommend all companies and reps, but companies to create like a internal GPT for specific as like a solutions architect, like an engineer, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I'm gonna have an AI engineer at my side. right? Not that configures things, but can answer 80% of what you probably used to get dragged into on a daily basis with dumb questions that are like, really, you asking me to that? Have you rebooted yet? Type of shit. You know what I mean? So that when I'm sitting there, because there's all these tools right now that are like serving up information to a sales rep on a Zoom call, like, hey, he just said this, make sure you reference these things, right? Or here's the objection technique that you should use. And it's like, and the rep's like, I think that's terrible. But I don't think that, I think that it's credible to say, you know, when say you and I are talking, you ask me a technical question, I'm like, you know what, Joseph, I don't know. But let's find out together. And instead of me waiting till next week to get my SE on a call, elongating that thing, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to open up our internal GPT, that's our SE with all the technical knowledge of it, and we're going to start asking some questions. Like, what do you mean? Like, because you might, as a buyer, you might not know the questions you should be asking, but I should as a sales rep. So let's figure this out together. So I think the transparency of working with AI is insane as far as the superpower is concerned. It's when reps are outsourcing the thinking, when they're outsourcing. So here's another quick example. Like when you ask like, what I'm doing with it. I'm creating, I'm not anywhere near, and probably I will be in the next 6 months, but the agent thing of like, just take over all my stuff and do, you know, work on your, autonomously and go between your tabs. Like that scares the ever living shit out of me. I'll probably get there in 6 months, whatever. I don't even like the universal AI tool that does everything. So what I do is I create custom GPTs for very specific point solution things that I need. Right. So for instance, preparing for a meeting. I've custom, and I do my training on this, and so I've taken my training and I've created a custom GPT to help people walk through the training. Like prepping for meetings. There's a million tools out there right now that I can just put your company name in there and your LinkedIn profile, and it spits out this beautiful 2-page dossier of all the things I need to know about your business and everything else. But the problem is, going back to being lazy, most reps are going to get that 2-page document and go, check, just now I'm prepared. Are you? Did you even read what was on that 2 pages? Were you curious about where that information came from? So instead of that, what I do is, okay, who you meet with, John? Meet with XYZ company. Cool. Put their website in. All right. Well, cool. Let's start with the trends of the industry. Here's some trends in the industry that are going on right now that are kind of that you should know about, because this is what's affecting them as a business. Here's the ones that are most relevant to you. Then it gets to, do you want to, before we move to the next stage, John, do you want to know anything more about that industry? Or by the way, here's some questions you might be interested in or you should ask, right? Okay, cool. Now what I'm done at next. Now let's talk about the company. All right, 10K, financial reports, strategy, all this other stuff. Okay, here's all the information. Who's their competition? Who's their ICP and all that stuff? How do they make money? Great. Do you want to learn anything more about the company, John? Okay, now let's go to the persona. And then persona, like what does a CIO in healthcare care about versus a CIO in retail? Like there are different nuances there. Now the person, the social post. Now that you've done all that, now let's come up with a few hypotheses on what their situation might be and how you might be able to help. Here are 3 hypotheses based on that knowledge. Which one do you like, John? Oh, I like this one. Okay, now let's come up with some questions that uncover the impact of the problem that could be solving. You got those questions? Good. Why? I don't like that question. I like this question. Can we role play that a little bit? Cool. Now, print out a 2-page document summary so that you can be ready for that meeting. So if you use it as a facilitator of learning, and to your point, role playing sometimes back, because that after I do that, by the way, then I'll be like, okay, great. Then I'll turn on the microphone and I'll be like, all right, could you act as Joseph here, please? Knowing that you are the person I am meeting with. I now have all this knowledge and I know, you know what I'm trying to sell at the end of the day or trying to understand. Can we just do a quick little role play? And then I turn the microphone on, we go back and forth. I ask a question and I'm like, I don't like the way I asked that question. Can we pause here for a second? What's a better way to ask that question? Oh, here's 3 options. Oh, I like that one. Okay. Can we go back into the role play again? All right. All right. Now,
Love that.
I'm fully versed in their business. I understand their industry. I have business acumen because I've learned it. I just wasn't told it. And I can be dynamic in the meeting.
I love that. I mean, what you're saying, it's intentionality. It's emotional intelligence. That's there too. It's also building on the prefrontal cortex, right? How we think and engage to make choices in the moment, critical thinking. And a lot of people are in this age of AI, they're letting the tech do a lot of work. There's even tech within sales that basically you can get on a sales call or managing a webinar
Yep.
where it'll tell you where you're losing certain people. It tells you
Yep.
that, like you lost Debbie, June, and Marco over here on the
Yep.
lower left. Now, that's useful, but if you gotta take that data,
Yeah.
absorb it, and make a decision, make a choice, and maybe even being transparent in the moment. And I know I've lost a few of you here,
Yep.
and I think it's because I said this earlier on.
Yep.
So it's engaging in that critical thinking. It's really a value. And when I teach AI, we talk about this too. We talk about
Yep.
I talk about juggling. I talk about going on a hike, like anything that gets you out of the mind, right? Like minimizing context switching, like all the
Right.
things that cause
Yep.
you to lose your mind, and make better decisions. And that's probably even more relevant in sales training
Wow.
than ever before, because people lose that. People go into this, mentioned some authors, leaders before who just go into it as a numbers game without actually fully caring about the
Yep.
person, the
Yep.
organization, the mission
And
anymore.
there we are in, I think, a bit of a crisis here with what has happened, because COVID turned everything virtual.
Yeah.
So now these kids have grown up in this window here,
Yes.
and there's something about being in person and reading somebody's body language and watching them, get a little uncomfortable in their seat and understand, watch them not look in your eyes, look over. There's just that component of sales has been ripped out. And I don't mean just sales. I mean, just like in like humanality, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's why everything these days feels so transactional.
Relationships, right? Or even
Yeah,
dating
swipe left,
or
swipe right. Like you don't even have to. And so now it's that's why I think authenticity comes screaming through at this
Yeah.
point. Like you don't have to be the smartest kid out there,
Mm.
but to your point, like own it. Be like, hey, Joseph, it looks like I might have lost you here. Did I say something that whatever? Like I'm sorry, I was going down a path that I thought you guys cared about, but apparently not. You know what I mean? Just owning that and
Yeah.
and being human. Right. I think that's our superpower, is that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
AI is perfect, or it can be.
Yeah.
We're
The
not.
best sales training I've gotten over the years was 20 years ago studying improv
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
studying long form improv, actually
Yeah.
being in situations, actually communicating an expression, an emotion,
Yep.
getting feedback, and like having people feel in those moments. But what was said, that was probably the greatest sales training I
Yeah.
ever got, for me personally. Yeah.
Absolutely. I recommend everybody do that. Go to an improv class. You will learn more about selling an improv than you could possibly imagine, because that's what it's about. Because if you feel like you're being scripted, if you feel like, if you're a buyer and you sniff of a technique, you sniff of a process, you immediately shut down. You know what I mean? Well, let me ask you my BANT questions here. Oh no, I now have to give you my demo. It's like, dude, can we just have a conversation, please? You know what I mean? Like I've had to literally stop reps and say, please shut up. Please put the script down. I just want to talk to you here. And if they can't, they're like, but I got my badge. I have to get my, my boss is going to yell at me because Gong's recording this thing. And if I don't say this, I'm going to get in trouble. It's like, God, that's the challenge. We've turned these kids into robots, and now they're getting replaced by robots.
Yeah. Scary.
Yeah.
It really is. It really. So what's the solution around this? So given all this is happening with AI, and you've touched on this already a little bit, but going forward, in this robotic world, we're in about 3 years, we're going to have our own personalized robots in our house and doing things. All the tech that's out there. What's your hypothesis? What needs to happen?
I'm gonna unplug and go live in Costa Rica. Honestly, what I'm doing in 2 years when my daughter graduates high school. But no, I think it's again to ride the wave, to get in the game. If you're not in the game, you're gonna get like this isn't like I've had this argument before. But every technology evolves and creates and displays. Shut up, like absolutely shut up. I saw the internet come out. I saw the iPhone come out. I saw high speed internet. I saw all these things, and all of them were kind of like this. Okay, but displays and okay. This is hockey stick. See you later. Like it's learning on itself faster than anybody has ever seen before in its life. It's changing and disrupting things fast. So if you are not in the game right now, like you're gonna get replaced. Period. Especially white collar, right? Any kid, excuse me, any kid right now going into school. Sorry. Any kid going into school, I tell them, if you don't know what, you go into the trades, be an electrician, be a plumber, because white collar is in a lot of trouble. But if you can be that white collar user, the top 20%, that gives a shit, that is curious, that doesn't outsource your thinking to it, but uses it as I always like. I tell my daughter with social media, make sure you are the product when it comes to social media. Okay.
Yeah.
But just make sure as much as it's using you, you're using it.
Yeah.
Right.
Be the executive producer versus being the executive user of it,
Yeah.
right? Where you're
Right.
losing executive function in the process of it.
So A, get in the game, B, just experiment. You know, like I think the best thing anybody can do is build custom GPTs, vibe code something, create an app just so you can see what it can do. Like half the value of the training that I bring to the table now is waking people up to what it can do. And I'm talking at the baseline level. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll just light up the microphone sometimes. I'll be like, guys, do you realize how easy this is? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'll be like, I'm trying to watch, and I'll turn the microphone. I'll be like, yeah, I want to do this and blah, blah. No, actually, never mind. I don't want to do that. Let's try this instead. And if you could do this and research that and go back and then produce a 2-page, and it produces like this and people are like, holy shit, what? I'm like, yes. This isn't like you have to be a coder. You don't have to be an engineer. You just have to be curious.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you are curious, man, the world is a wide open for you at this point.
Yeah.
But if you are fixed mindset, we talk fixed mindset, growth mindset, man. If you are fixed mindset now, you are screwed. Screwed. So you might as well unplug and go down to Costa Rica.
I love it. You touched on a lot of things here, and I'm a big fan of personal development. I'm also a big fan of execution. We focus a lot of that in the communities I lead. It's by getting on the court, and it's also being willing to develop emotional intelligence, have conversations.
IQ's over. IQ's over. EQ's everything. Everything. IQ is over. As long as you know how to use it, it's smarter than you. It's better than you. I knew I'll end on this. Like I knew I was in trouble as somebody who makes money transferring knowledge. I knew I was in trouble because I got Guy Kawasaki on my podcast a while back. And, for those who don't know, he's, the chief evangelist officer at Apple and the whole thing, wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all that fun stuff. He had Robert Kiyosaki. Sorry. No, not Rich Dad. Okay. What was he wrote the most recent, I forget the most recent book he wrote is Be Remarkable, but he had written 17 books, and I forget which the one he was most famous for, but he was, Steve Jobs' right-hand man. Yeah. And the day before I interviewed him, I saw an interview that he had done with Google, and he had said in that interview, he had created a Kawasaki GPT, and he took every book, every podcast, every blog he's ever written in his life, and he put it on this GPT. And he said in the interview, if you ask Kawasaki GPT a question, you'll get a better answer than if you'll ask me. So I was like, okay. So the day before I interviewed Guy Kawasaki, I interviewed his GPT. I asked him the same questions. And then when he got on the podcast, I asked him I didn't tell him, but I asked him the same questions in the same order. And at the end, I go, Guy, I know you're a huge AI fan here. I go, I got to let you know, man, I've already had this conversation with you. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, last night. I go, you're GPT. And I go, I gotta be honest, man, you were right. Your answers last night were better. And he starts laughing because he had just come off of surfing. And he was like, well, then why am I not out still surfing? I go, actually, Guy, that's my question for you. Is that if I can get better answers from your GPT, what the fuck is the point of this conversation? And he was like, well, legacy. I go, no. That's for you. For somebody like me who's trying to learn something from you, what the fuck is the point of this conversation? And when Guy Kawasaki, who has as much experience as he's had over the years with as many cool people that he's had, when he didn't have a good answer for me on that one, I knew I was in trouble.
Wow.
So that's where I started doubling down on figuring this stuff out and figuring out how to use it as opposed to being used by it.
Amen to that. Fantastic. This is deep, rich conversation. I love your take on sales. I really do. I've interviewed a few people in the past, and your take, just being authentic, real, being intentional, EQ really is. It's all about EQ, developing further EQ, getting out in person, meeting people in person. Especially for the kids who grew up during COVID, the challenges of that, and just encouraging them to figure out a way of meeting people, building relationships. All of that's really key. It's fantastic. Any parting wisdom, anything final words you would want to offer our audience?
You just, like I said, get in the game. You know what I mean? Like, just get in the game, start playing around with this stuff, start getting curious, get off the sideline. If you think this is a fad, or if you think this is not going to affect you, you're wrong. You are just wrong. And like, who knows, we can all talk about Terminator and the end of the world and all that other stuff, but until then, might as well, like, it ain't going anywhere. It's
Yeah.
just going to be more and more part of our lives. So you can be that person that sits back and says, no, I'm going to rely on my expertise, and I'm better than it and all this. No, 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 you will
Yeah.
get replaced. So just start figuring it out. Just start getting curious, and ultimately find a way to give a shit, man. Like,
Yeah.
find a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Love it. Give a shit. I
yeah,
love that. I love all of that. I mean, at beginning of the game is key. The
yeah,
game is meant to be fun. We
yeah,
talk about that in our community.
yeah,
Dare to play bigger, bolder, and better. It's all a game. And don't lose yourself as you're playing the game.
yeah, exactly.
Minimize context switching, make better choices,
Yeah,
engage, have conversations. This has been invaluable. Thank you, John Barrows, for this interview for our audience. Tap into the interview, the mind map, the summary, all of it at rulesforsuccess.com. This has been a pleasure having this conversation, and I want to challenge everyone: go out there, have conversations, talk to your customers, learn, really build on why you're doing what you do. Like, tap
yeah,
into the mission, the drive, and it's relevant more so now than ever, especially in this new age of AI that we're in.
yes, indeed.
Thanks so much.
Awesome, Joseph. Thank you, man.
All right, so that